All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. We're going to do a reaction to a Jimmy X High Roller video. This one is called When You're the Best Player in the World and No One Cares. And I believe this is going to be about Luka Doncic. So let's check it out. As always, original video is going to be linked down below. Shoot Jimmy X some love and shoot me a like and comment at the end of it. Tell me what you think and subscribe if you like the content. All right, here we go.
What do you call a player who is averaging 34, 9, and 10 a game on 62% true shooting? The face of the NBA? The best basketball player in the world? How about the player who is fourth on the NBA's MVP leaderboard at the moment?
That's
10
ridiculous.
years ago.
I gotta see who's ahead of him. I mean, Joker's got to be number one, but nobody else should be number two. That should be all his.
These numbers would have had a player in conversations as the greatest basketball player ever, let alone the MVP for a season. But now this stat line hardly even earns you a shot to become the league's most valuable player. Lately, I've been paying close attention to how the MVP race is playing out this season, and it's going about how you would expect. The season started out with Jokic leading the race coming off a very controversial decision last season. Then Joel Embiid morphed into a basketball god for 2 months and buried all hopes of anyone else winning the award. And then he got hurt, and Jokic jumped back out in front and has held the top spot ever since, with currently SGA in second and Giannis in third. But as I was going over the timeline of the
Wow, that's actually really surprising. Damn, man.
race this season, one thing jumped out at me. Why is Luka Doncic so low? I'm going back and looking at some of his performances and his numbers from this season, and yep, they're still completely unreal.
Dude, if Joker doesn't get it, he better get it because he's been right there every single year. But I can't argue with the idea that Joker deserves another one. You know, he is the best player in the world right now.
Why is he all the way in fourth place at the moment? Have voters gone on a Luka strike? They all just collectively decided they're not going to vote for him? I don't know, maybe his play style is just too polarizing to reward. His game right now is often compared to prime James Harden, and we all know how that turned out. But even Harden and all of his antics still won an MVP award. On the NBA's last weekly recap of the race, it seems they've taken a strong stance on his chances of winning the award up to this point. Sorry, Mavs fans, but the standings matter. We understand he scored 25 plus points in 9 straight games. But flashy highlights and massive numbers aside, Doncic needs to lift Dallas out of play-in tournament territory to climb near the top of this list. But that isn't true, is it? In fact, I know it's not, because other players have won just as many games as Luka is winning this season, with worse numbers and less individual dominance, and they still went on to win the MVP. Luka Doncic is being held to a higher standard than anyone else right now, and I think we might be looking at the MVP award and how we value players all wrong. Today's video is sponsored by DraftKings. Tournament time is officially here, so fill out your brackets and place your bets on who you think on your state.
So I'm
you can
already
still get
surprised
out
by this.
instantly. That's promo code Jimmy Highroller only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Do you guys use DraftKings?
When Luka Doncic first entered the league in 2018, he immediately leapfrogged all the assumptions we had about his game and his potential. By his second season, his 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists a game earned him first-team All-NBA and a fourth-place finish in the MVP voting at just 21 years old. By the end of his second season, the general perception was that this guy was the future of the NBA. An MVP award was inevitable, and it would happen sooner than later. But Luka is now in his 6th season in the league, and despite getting better nearly every single season, his place on the MVP leaderboard has only fallen.
Okay. Wow. His stats are pretty much going up every single year. I'm just looking at scoring so far. 20 to 28 to 27, back to 28, now 32, and now 34. Fucking A, man. He is playing lights out. Rebounds. Not slacking there, man. He started out with that's surprising as a little kid. Started out with 8, 9, 8, 9, high 8, 9. Okay, so 8.5 is basically his average, and he's not going down. He's not really going up. Assists Ooh, that's increasing. So he started out with 6, then 8.8, 8.7, 8.7, 8, 9.7. This probably has to do with him having Kyrie with him now. He's got someone to dish it off. Oh man. Yeah, everything else is increasing. So yeah, I mean, this is a fair case by Jimmy X because other than personal bias, like people not liking him, why is his place in the MVP race going down while he's becoming a better player every year?
Virtually every season, voters seeming to become less and less interested in this Luka magic. How did Luka's best case for the most valuable player in the NBA come in just his second season and has only gone downhill since? Are we looking at the MVP award all wrong? Is it even possible for someone to be the most valuable player in the NBA while not elevating their team to a title contender? A question not applying to just Luka,
Oh,
but to any
absolutely.
player in general. Where exactly is the balance between individual dominance and team success when evaluating the top talents in the NBA?
That's how I've always felt about James Harden.
If the Nuggets ran into some injuries and had a tough stretch of games and somehow fell to the 7th seed, would we be willing to admit that Nikola Jokic is still the best and most valuable player in the league despite the lack of team success? Is it possible to get voter fatigue or even player fatigue before a player has even won anything? Here's a number for you: 41.8. This is the number you get if you combine the average points, rebounds, and assists per game of every MVP winner over the last 30
Oh,
years.
Luka's gonna
This
crush that.
season, Luka is averaging 53.2 combined points, rebounds, and assists, the highest combined total since Kareem over 50 years ago in 1972.
Good
And putting
Lord.
up numbers like this usually results in winning games and winning an MVP. Most
Yeah.
of the players near the top of this list have earned the award for their efforts. Kareem missed out on the award in 1973, but he already won back-to-back MVPs in the previous 2 seasons. James Harden came in second in 2019, but he already won the award in the previous season as well. Luka, on the other hand, seems to be suffering from a rare case of voter fatigue before winning any awards. Raising the bar to first team All-NBA in just your sophomore season means every year after that must be even better if you really want to captivate an audience. And Luka has gotten better every single season. So
I mean, that voter fatigue thing is kind of why, one, I feel Joker didn't win it last year and they gave it to Embiid, but I kind of feel like they need to give it back to him as voter fatigue over, you know? They already punished him 1 year. So I think he's earned it. Um, but if they don't give it to him, man, I really think they should give it to Luca. I mean, we know what we're going to talk about in the comments already. Who's your MVP this year? And if it's not Joker, then who else is it? Who's your number 2?
maybe he's just not winning enough games. The unwritten rule about the MVP award has always been that you not only need to be great, but your team needs to be great. But this isn't always the case. In fact, recently, it's hardly the case. And voters have not shied away from rewarding exceptional seasons, even if it didn't result in overall team success.
They do that a lot more these days.
In 1987, after just over 2 seasons in the league, Michael Jordan finished second in MVP voting ahead of generational talents and vets of the 80s.
God, I can't believe he was ahead of Bird just in his second year. But yeah, 37 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, it's all because of that scoring, and his shooting percentage was off the charts too. Magic was getting you 12 assists. Yeah, that was the difference maker, and his team was the best in the league. So I mean, they still they for the majority of the time they still reward the best team in the league. Like if you're an MVP contender and you have the best team in the league, you're pretty much gonna win. Um, all the years that Jordan didn't win at the end of his career, like later on in his career, he lost to somebody like Barkley when he played for the Suns. And in '93, Barkley had a slightly better record with the Suns than the Bulls did. So they gave it to him. Well earned, though. But, Barkley, I'm glad he got one. And then same thing with Karl Malone. The year that Karl Malone beat him was 96 or 97. I can't remember. The Utah Jazz had the best record in the league. So that's the only reason. Because they're looking for an excuse not to give it to the same guy over and over again. And if you can have the best record, well, they're going to use that in their voting to not give it to Michael Jordan every year or Magic Johnson every year or currently Joker every year.
Generational talents and vets of the 80s, despite closing the season with a record below 500 and finishing the season on a stretch of 15 losses in 23 games. He was young, he was unproven, and yet voters were still so enamored by his individual dominance that they just looked past the lack of team success. One argument you can make for this season is the fact that it happened nearly 40 years ago in a league where numbers like this were unheard of. But a similar case of crazy numbers and individual performance outweighing overall team performance just happened again a couple seasons ago. In 2022, Nikola Jokic won the league MVP after finishing the season with just 48 wins and the 6th seed in the West. His numbers were incredible, and his advanced metrics were even better. In fact, he was so good that the lackluster 48-win total was a bit of an afterthought for many voters. The only thing is, this season, the Mavericks are on pace to winning 48 games as well. And as loaded as Jokic's stat line was in that 2022 MVP campaign,
okay, this is interesting. 27 versus 34. More rebounds for Joker. More for Luka. Surprised by that. Steals, even. Blocks, almost even. But Joker's got the edge. True shooting is right there. Man, I mean, I would give it to Joker again. I hate to say it, Luka. Like, I'd give it to Joker again. But if you don't, fucking A, man. Luka really deserves it.
Luka's numbers are just about as good this season. So how does one of these seasons earn a player his second consecutive MVP and the other hardly even earn a player a spot on the MVP leaderboard? But I think the most glaring case of a player winning over voters with a historic individual season was back in 2017, when Russell Westbrook lit the whole league on fire for 81 games and averaged a 30-point triple-double for an entire season. This was just 7 years ago, and it's already easy to forget just how inconceivable this was at the time. There is not a person on earth who thought a player could average a triple-double for an entire season. So when Westbrook pulled it off, the MVP award had his name on it, and rightfully so. But the Thunder finished with the 6th seed and just 47 wins. In fact, James Harden and Kawhi Leonard both had strong cases to be the most valuable player in the league that season. So again, what has changed between then and now? How did we go from being so captivated with a stat line like this to just casually brushing aside?
I want to look at that again, or for a second, because dude, Luka is so close to averaging a triple double, and if he did, they'd have to give it to him. My God, I forgot that Westbrook was getting 31 points that year too, 31-point triple double. Son of a bitch. Yeah, he really deserved it. He really earned that one, Russ. You can't take it away from him. But right now, I mean, look at Luka's numbers, man. More points, and then he's right there within one in the next two categories. And then he's playing defense with the steals. He's got more, well, I mean, slightly more block, 1.1, whatever. Better true shooting, and his team is going to end the season with more wins. Fuck. Good stuff, Jimmy X.
A similar season in just 7 years. But Westbrook's triple-double season in 2017 didn't just shatter our ideas of what were possible from an individual player. His season completely altered the way MVP voting works altogether. Up until Westbrook's 2017 season, the MVP award was virtually the best player on the best team award. If your team wasn't the first seed or...
Yep, 05, everybody who hates on Nash for taking those MVPs away from Kobe. Why? This is why, because I mean, that's a big part of what used to be the MVP rules. You got to be on the best team. You got to have the best record, or at least the best record in your, in your conference. So the best in the East or best in the West. And that's the only reason Kobe didn't win those, because he was dominating individually, but he didn't meet the rules. Basically, do I agree with the rules? No, but I didn't make them up. They exist.
On occasion, the second seed going into the playoffs, your chances of winning the award were almost non-existent. From 1988 to 2016, 23 of 29 regular season MVPs went to players who led their team to the best record in their conference. 5 of the 29 MVPs went to players who earned the second seed, and only 1 went to a player who didn't lead their team to a top 2 seed. But with Westbrook's MVP in 2017, voters of the award and fans in general almost recalibrated the way they approached the discussion of who the most valuable player in the league can be and what is required of them. Because
And I don't blame them. Something that spectacular, averaging a 31-point triple-double, they had to break the rules. They had to do it. You not give it to them. That's just not fair.
4 of the last 7 MVPs finished the season with the 3rd seed or lower. This
Okay, so
season,
the rule
Jokic
is
is
broken
favored to
now.
win the award, and the
That broke
Nuggets
the
are
rule
on pace
officially.
to finishing the season with the 3rd seed as well. Something that only occurred once in 37 seasons and required the best player of all time to put up the best individual season of his career is about to happen for the 5th time in just 8 years. It's almost as if overnight we all realize that winning the most games is not the end-all be-all to what makes a player the most valuable.
Yeah,
10 years ago,
I
an
agree with
NBA
that.
fan posted this on Reddit, and reading it is almost like jumping into a time machine and traveling into the past. He goes on to list the last 30 MVP winners and the seed they earned going into the playoffs, recognizing the correlation between winning the most games and winning the MVP. And he posted this with a note at the end that tells you everything you need to know about how the award worked just 10 years ago. I put this on here so people hopefully stop making unlikely MVP predictions. No, Anthony Davis is not going to lead the Pelicans to the 5th seed and win MVP. And the comments on this thread are just as insightful as the post itself. So is it really an MVP award? In theory, yes, but maybe it's more of a best player on the best team. Players do not win MVPs getting 6th seeds, overwhelming majority of the time, because this is a superstar league and superstars get top seeds. And this fan is right, or at least he was 10 years ago. So why did we make exceptions for other players and continue to do so, but we hold Luka to such a strict standard? If the Mavs went on a nice stretch of wins to close out the season and finished with, let's say, 53 wins instead of 48, finished with the 4th seed instead of the 6th, would that really help Luka's case? The Mavs could have an easy schedule to close out the season. Kyrie could go on a tear.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, as of right now, Kyrie and Luka are tearing it up together. Kyrie's rising up. I love Kyrie, dude. That dude can ball.
Team could get into a rhythm and earn a higher seed, and Luka could be playing at the same level he did all season. But since they're winning more games, none of which had anything to do with Luka playing better, he would miraculously have a better case for the MVP. I know this is how it works. This is the nature of this award. But it's still a bit odd that there is so much weight put into some factors when considering who the most valuable player in the league is. And the season Luka is having in particular is shining a massive light on this irrational way of going about this. Is Jason Tatum more valuable than Luka this season?
I
You
don't think
could
so.
make the argument, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who would, including the NBA's MVP leaderboard. And yet, Luka has been more valuable this season according to virtually every single metric other than win totals.
Yeah, easily. Wins in points, wins in rebounds, wins in assists, wins in steals, right there in blocks, true shoot wins. Man, dude. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum has missed 5 games this season, and in those games, the Celtics have outscored their opponents by 77 points. This
Okay.
season, Luka has missed 8 games, and in those games, the Mavericks have been outscored by 47 points.
Yeah, these kind of metrics are things that I like to look at for what I consider most valuable player. Like, fuck MVP. People forget what it stands for. Most valuable player. This shows value. That means if Luka's not out there, his team sucks. This is showing that the Celtics are good with or without Tatum. Would they last long without him? I don't know. But they're rallying, without him. And I could say the same thing about current LeBron, not young LeBron, but current LeBron. The Lakers are kind of playing better without him when he's not playing, when he sits out. So He's actually not adding a lot of value to his team. And I'm not dissing Jason Tatum. Awesome, solid player. But this tells a story. I could say the same thing about '05 Steve Nash. If Nash couldn't play a game or he was hurt in the fourth quarter or something happened, we fell apart. That shows value. And that's why I always fought the stance that Nash earned those most valuable player awards was because with him, he turned a team that was like 18 or 19 wins the season prior to a 60 something win team and a title contender. And without him, we're garbage. So I don't know.
When Jason Tatum isn't on the court, the Celtics are plus 10.1 points per 100 possessions this season.
Dude, they're
When Luka
dominating
isn't
without
on the
him.
court, the Mavericks are minus 2.8 points per 100 possessions this season. When Tatum isn't on the court, the Celtics are still really good. When Luka isn't on the court, the Mavericks are terrible. To look at how many wins a team has as the driving factor for the MVP race neglects how teams even got those wins and how much the best player on that team is contributing to those wins. Now, this season might actually be a case of the league getting a whole lot better, or maybe just the stats getting better, rather than voters and fans appreciating different aspects of the game and its players than they did in the past. The threshold for what it takes to make, let's say, an all-NBA team, earn the label of superstar, and win the league's MVP has been raised so high that a player could have a one-of-one, unprecedented season and not even get a mention as one of the league's best players. A great case of this is Domantas Sabonis, who is averaging 20 points, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists a game right now, and he wasn't even selected as an all-star this season. These are not empty stats. He's not a product of the system he plays in. He is a certified star. But since there's a guy in the league who can do all of this and more, he ends up being unjustly.
Real quick, any of you guys ever see his dad play? He was like the most fundamentally sound old big man at that time. It was fun to watch him. It's too bad the NBA got him when he was so old, though.
Labeled as the watered-down version of Nikola Jokic. It feels a bit surreal that we live in a time where a player like Luka Doncic exists with numbers like these, and the MVP award isn't already boxed up and on the way to his house as we speak. And this realization is less about Luka and more about the big picture of the league right now. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around how much things have changed, and even harder to grasp how quickly they have changed. How can he be this good and still be trailing behind multiple other players? If it wasn't for Embiid getting hurt, Luka could very well not even be within the top 5 on the MVP leaderboard, while averaging nearly a 34-point triple-double and being on pace for 48 wins. Which begs the question, what would a player in Luka's position need to do to win the MVP? With the 6th seed, an underwhelming supporting cast, and a handful of generational superstars to contend with?
Personally, I think if Joker would have won last year and Embiid was out, I think they would give it to him. But since Joker didn't get it last year, I think Joker's going to do it. And the only thing that can stop that is if Luka was the Dallas Mavericks were number 1 in the West, and that's it. If they were number 1 or number 2 in the West, I think Luka would do it. But they're not. They're middle of the road.
What would be the equivalent to the 2017 Westbrook triple-double season in 2024, where the numbers are just too absurd to ignore?
By the way, what does it say about today's defense? Luka can't even jump. He can't run. He's slow, no legs, and he's dominating offensively. What does that say about today's defense and what they're allowed to do? They can't touch anybody. It's weak. The guy who can't jump, damn, man, he shouldn't be just schooling all these guys like this.
38, 10 and 10, maybe 40 points, 12 rebounds, and 12 assists a night on league high efficiency? It sounds like hyperbole, but it's not. How good do you have to be to win the MVP in today's NBA? When you put the bar as high as Luka did at such a young age, how much higher would you need to go for it to be impossible for fans and voters to ignore your efforts? Or is the MVP award still just the best player on the best team award?
Maybe if you got a 34-point triple-double, that's maybe the only other way to do it. All right. Excuse me. All right, guys. That was a good video. Not for anybody who's a Luka hater. They're probably gonna emotionally come up with some reason why he doesn't deserve it. But I don't know, man. I think the guy deserves it. Joker is still my favorite player right now. So I think he's really earned it. But man, Luka deserves one. He just deserves at least one in his career. Um, anyways, let me know what you think about the video. This was a Jimmy X High Roller video, and I'll link it down below. Yeah, shoot me a like, subscribe to the channel if you like the content, and comment down below who do you believe this year deserves to win MVP. And then after that, add with who do you think will win MVP. All right, everybody. I'll talk to you tomorrow in the next video. See you later. Peace. Thanks for watching.